a lot of emails serve different purposes. Sometimes an email's purely just to remind someone something, right? A lot of brands online are very repetitive, and it's like every week they're kind of just reminding you of the same couple of things. Or it's like, by the way, are you tired of, just hammering the same pain points? Tired of paying taxes, you don't have to pay taxes anymore, right? That's a simplification. I think what you're doing that's interesting that you describe is, providing information that people didn't even know about. So a lot of people, you're just poking a pain point that they're aware of, like, hey, your taxes are high. Is that annoying? Let's do something about it. And then you're also, using the email as a form of education and introducing new ideas they hadn't even considered. And that's going to kind of train them to continue to look to you as a source of information that they can't get anywhere else. Is that something you'd agree with? Vance, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Doing well, man. Yourself?
Doing great. I'm excited to reconnect. I know I was on your podcast a couple months back, and it's nice to flip the script here. So lots of good stuff to dive into.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I've been expecting this.
I know. It's like, what? We're rebranding. Let me get through all that. And then once that's all taken care of, and as you know, every kind of major project takes slightly longer than you'd expect, especially when you have client work, because that kind of tends to take the priority. But we're here and we're doing it. So lots of wisdom to extract. Let's start out, Vance. You tell me kind of an overview of your brand's My Latin Life, the actual back-end monetization behind it, because I think a lot of people will know of you, as a Twitter account. But obviously, if it's a business, you're not just getting paid to tweet. Kind of show me or just describe for me the overview of the business.
Sure. Well, it's definitely undergone an evolution over the years. I mean, historically, it started as a blog. And blogs, obviously, they did monetize pretty well back in the day, especially if you got onto some of the good blog networks. But that's kind of dying out for a couple of reasons, Chat GPT being one of them, and people just don't read anymore, right? So we wanted to go in a more fun direction of a podcast and a Twitter. Twitter kind of came about almost by accident, where just a lot of the digital nomad guys were hanging out there, and sort of a crazy mix of characters. And this was even before the Elon takeover.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was dabbling with it a lot before the Elon takeover. But once he started acquiring the company, I was like, okay, this is going to be a big platform in the future, and it's worth it to go hard on that. So that's kind of where we're most active, I guess, is the podcast, coming up on 200 episodes, maybe 200 by the time you put this out, and then the Twitter as well, where we have 31,000 followers.
Awesome. And then what is the actual service now? So, I mean, the brand, travel, residency, passports, you do a lot of lifestyle type content as well, just why life is so cool, or these big benefits of living in Latin America. But what's the actual product?
Yeah. So it's kind of been responding to what we get asked for, I guess. And so we've kind of molded into an immigration agency where in-house, we do it all in-house. We help people get residency and second passports all over Latin America. So we do every country in LATAM, whether it's Dominican Republic, Mexico, Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay obviously is very popular, Colombia, Panama. So we do every country. And some are more popular than others for, you know what I mean? We do a lot of Mexico and Paraguay, both for residency and for citizenship. And then, but yeah, we try to do every country, and we do a lot of other services as well, like opening bank accounts for people in remotely, like offshore bank accounts, and help people escape high tax countries' tax systems. So for Canadians, they're able, they have different opportunities than Americans. I'm sure most of your audience is American. Mm-hmm. They can optimize using what's called the foreigner and income exclusion as an American if you live abroad, and we help people do that. And then people from other nationalities, we help them get residency and even maybe switch their tax residency and ultimately lower their taxes as someone that works online as a digital nomad or whatever.
Now, how did you start to get traction on Twitter? What were you doing that you're like, this is working and I'm going to double down on this, in terms of building up that following and audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think consistency is number one. I mean, I just consistently show up every day for 2.5, maybe 3 years now. So consistency, and I think it's also just the trend, the larger macro
Yep.
trend of what I'm doing, where I kind of found something that speaks a nerve to people, and I'm really one of the only people that do it, especially the way I do it, focusing on Latin America, where obviously the digital nomad thing is growing, but then increasingly retirees are moving to Latin America, and even families in their, where the parents are in their
Sure.
30s and 40s and they have two, three kids. We've helped many families at this point uh, relocate to Latin America. So it's kind of like at every stage of life, it appeals to people, or there's like a reason to do it. And so I think we caught a good macro trend.
Have there been any unexpected opportunities that have come up because of the content you're producing?
Unexpected opportunities. Well, I mean, the podcast has definitely allowed me to be introduced to illustrious people like yourself,
Illustrious.
and meet a lot of really cool people, and that's led to not only, I guess, internet relationships or
Mhm.
friendships, but also meeting up with people in person. And now, if I go anywhere in Latin America, I have like people who want to go out and get a beer and a steak with me, and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Anything on the business side, or it's all just more of a personal benefit?
Well, one thing I was going to mention is, in addition to the residency services, we also just do like general relocation mentorship,
Hmm.
where either we're helping families relocate and sort of taking care of a lot of the soft aspects of it, or people who are maybe younger or internationally minded, and they say, I actively want to create a plan B. I'm pulled in a whole bunch of different directions. I don't know exactly what I want. I just want to internationalize as much as possible, put me on a path to a second passport, whatever. Tell me what city I should go live in. I'm tired of Cleveland or whatever. And we help people with like a holistic relocation.
Why is this movement resonating? Like, why is your content resonating? What like emotionally is happening in people's minds when you're putting the content out that's making them engage and have all this activity and excitement enough, and even to you said you get a lot of like inbound questions and comments and people coming to you on the DMs. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think you're tapping into there, kind of at the psychological level?
Well, yeah, there's so many ways I could answer that. I think one thing is that people are just more international than ever naturally,
Hmm.
where you just see a lot more um, couples where maybe the husband and wife are from different countries, and then there's naturally an international dynamic to that. Uh, like there's a million examples, right? Maybe lots of people these days have a wife from Europe or South America, and then that opens up a whole door of opportunities in terms of the kids can be dual citizens and they're
Yep.
speaking two languages. And then maybe you start doing business in two countries, your country and your spouse's country, or you have two homes, you have homes in different countries. And it's even at the point where some people have like three, four passports because there's just so much moving around in the family history. So I think that's part of it, is that like families are just naturally more international than they were maybe 50 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. You mentioned you've been doing this for 200 episodes, 3 years. What's some advice, again, on the marketing side that you would give to yourself at the beginning to kind of get to where you are faster, skip some of the mistakes and some of the missteps? Or maybe there are things you're pouring a lot of time into that weren't generating any yield that you stopped doing. Anything come to mind there?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's always been a side business as well, or I try to have multiple income streams, but
Mhm.
it's definitely been growing a lot where it could definitely be someone's primary thing. I think while you're in the email list business, I had an email list that was dormant, still is semi-dormant, but everyone says build the email list, build the email list, so I try to keep growing that every month. But I did ignore it for a little bit, like thinking it wasn't necessary. But there's no reason not to start in the beginning, especially because a lot of the tools these days, like Mailchimp, it's like first 1,000 for free or something like that, right? So you can set it up totally for free, and there's no reason not to just have a landing page and be collecting emails. So I definitely should have just had that a little bit more optimized from day one.
What kind of content do you serve them over email? Is it kind of just repurposing everything else? Or you're producing separate information specifically for email.
Well, don't look for me on a master class on email marketing because I've been learning stuff, but I've been doing it myself and
Hmm.
been it's not a master class, but I think I just try to share different information, repurpose material, and let people know kind of what programs or opportunities are out there. Like you might not consider getting a remote bank account in Costa Rica until I put the offer out and say, hey, we can get you one for 400 or 500 bucks. Do you want one type of thing? So, just putting out different opportunities and different ways that people can improve their lives and their sort of internationalization plan.
I think, you know, a lot of emails serve different purposes. Sometimes an email's purely just to remind someone something, right? A lot of brands online are very repetitive, and it's like every week they're kind of just reminding you of the same couple of things. Or it's like, by the way, are you tired of, just hammering the same pain points? Tired of paying taxes, you don't have to pay taxes anymore, right? That's a simplification. I think what you're doing that's interesting that you described is, providing information that people didn't even know about. So a lot of people, you're just poking a pain point that they're aware of, like, hey, your taxes are high. Is that annoying? Let's do something about it. And then you're also, using the email as a form of education and introducing new ideas they hadn't even considered. And that's going to kind of train them to continue to look to you as a source of information that they can't get anywhere else. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people say that they just learn a lot from my content because I try to be pretty intellectually curious about Latin America and then specifically what to do in terms of this nomad internationalization sovereignty stuff, James Bond type stuff.
Yep.
But there's like unlimited content for me because I mean there's so many countries and they all have different opportunities, and so I just can keep cycling through them, and it keeps me excited too about. I'm kind of learning with the audience to some extent, and whenever I meet people in person, they're just like, "Dude, I learned so much about Latin America from your page, like cities I should visit, opportunities that are out there." So yeah.
Let's actually expand upon that in a bit more detail because that's a common objection a lot of people have when it comes to creating content is they don't know what to create content about or they're worried that they're going to run out of ideas. So how do you conceptualize? Do you keep it organized? Do you have like a formula that's like, well, I haven't talked about this country in a long time or I haven't talked about this aspect of this particular challenge, like the financial side or the social side or this element to it? Is it formulaic or you kind of just wake up and just feel like talking about something? How do you approach it?
It's a bit of both. I think there are other people that are even more organized than me, and they have Trello boards and things like
Hmm.
that. I do use a little bit of the Notepad app, but nothing more than that. And I have some ideas. Um, I'd say I purposely try to provide a range of different, um, at least on Twitter, like a range of different tweet styles. Like some are photos, some are reels that I grabbed from Instagram, some are maps that are, interesting maps or data or charts or something like that. A lot of it is pure text tweets. I'm really good at pure text tweets talking about, as you said, lowering your taxes or things like that. And just so I try to hit a lot of different styles of tweets, particularly on Twitter, and kind of mixing up the format because that allows you to, tweet once an hour.
Yep,
Whereas if you were doing all pure text tweets, you can't really do like 10 pure text tweets a day, or people are just gonna be like, "What's going on here?" So you can, so I mean,
exactly.
there's different strategies, but I like just kind of mixing up the format a bit so people don't know what to expect.
How many times a day are you targeting Twitter? How much content are you trying to put out every single week?
I try to tweet like every 2 hours.
Oh wow. Do you schedule or you just are showing up all day?
Yeah, I usually have a fair bit scheduled. Like I usually have enough scheduled that I wouldn't have to touch my phone if I didn't want to. And then when I manually get involved because I genuinely enjoy it,
Hmm.
it's, quote tweets and replying to stuff. So maybe I schedule the tweets, but then I live reply a lot.
Sure. What's been the most popular piece of content you've ever created?
That's a good question. Um, I can tell you one of the top 10 was a funny one.
Okay, let's hear
Uh,
it.
I have had to delete tweets a couple times, but one of them was so I do these tweets that they're like it's like a city tweet where I highlight an underrated city in Latin America, and say
Hmm.
provide some information about the city, and I'll say like population 500,000, no gringos, blah blah blah. And one of the ones I did was about the city called Hermosillo, Mexico.
Hmm.
Um, and I wrote like I forget what I wrote. It was like population 400,000, no gringos, cowboy vibe, like 80% white European ethnicity or something like that. And people
Okay.
just and it came straight from Wikipedia.
Yeah, just
And
pure factual-ish. I mean, as
yeah, just
factual as Wikipedia is, which is
yeah,
not
like
necessarily
yeah, but
factual.
it was like pasted from Wikipedia, like whatever, 75% European descendants or something, and people just went so nuts, and it just took it so many different directions. Uh,
Do you ever purposely try to tweet something controversial to get engagement and attention and impressions?
a little bit, but I don't go overboard with it. But I did kind of learn it from one of the passport bros. I had this dude, I think it was Skylar, on my podcast, and he's like one of the black passport bros. And I usually don't have these guys on too much, but he's like the only one. And
What
I
do you
was
mean,
like,
Black
how?
Passport Bro?
Oh man. Well, passport bros kind of came from the African American community, at
Okay.
least as like a hashtag and as like a sort of YouTube phenomenon. And so I had one of these guys on, the YouTubers, and where was I going with this? Oh, he said to basically just he gets controversial on purpose, way more than I do. But he's like, but I kind of asked him like, how come you're growing so much, talking about a lot of the same things, like how great Brazil is, whatever. And he's like, I just make it more controversial. And so there's kind of a fine line. Like I don't think I have to take it that far, but I think it's definitely a good hack for I think any business if you're trying to get a business off the ground, that if you can be more controversial, at least it just gets eyes on things. And there's definitely like strong strategies where people purposely lean into that, whether it's current events and or just something that they know will have a very what's it called, polemic reactions.
Or inflammatory, something. Do you do anything besides organic content creation to get business, or everything comes from organic social?
Yeah, it's mostly organic because you really have to, I think you really have to know that we're an authority to, and you really, it's, I think we could definitely do it in the future. There's no reason not to experiment with it. It's kind of at that point where I've been looking at a lot, but I have my hands full just with like inbound practically.
Did you have like a background in writing or marketing or any of this before starting this business, or you just kind of one day started tweeting about Latin America and one thing led to another?
Did I have a background in writing? No, I mean, I've always enjoyed reading, but Twitter is definitely its own game where you have to know how to write it. There's definitely an art to knowing how to write a good tweet. And you've probably had it too, like people in your DM saying, "Hey, I'll tweet for you. Here are
Hmm.
some samples," and the samples just don't hit. And so I've
It doesn't
never.
feel like Twitter.
It doesn't feel like it does. It feels like I don't know. They just didn't have my voice, basically, or they didn't get it. Um, so I've definitely developed a style, and I've sort of I have a couple different styles, I think, but it's you have to be um, you have to pay attention to the details around like spacing and how to communicate a message in a way that captures someone's attention. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's something. There have been people who have been on Twitter a lot longer than I have. I mean, I got in kind of just before Elon, and I got in because I had a lot of friends who were saying that they were having fun with it, and I just kind of figured like Instagram is pretty downhill, Facebook's downhill. Like, what else is there? I mean, we're pretty big on Telegram too, My Latin Life, and we like Telegram. But Twitter is like the most fun thing by far, right?
Tell me more about what you do on Telegram.
Yeah, I mean, so we basically have communities there. So we have the main LATAM enthusiast Telegram group, which is about 2,800 people. It's free to join, and people are trading lots of tips about anything sort of related to being a digital nomad or expat in Latin America. You know, people are just like it's an absolute treasure trove of information, especially because I leave the whole conversation history available even to new joiners.
Oh,
So if you
nice.
join, so if you joined it today, you could search what people have talked about in the past and say you're going to a city. Let's just say whatever Tulum. You can just type in the word Tulum in the history, and you can see everything that's ever been written about it. Maybe people talked about their experience renting a car, or their tips, or where to stay, all this type of stuff. Um, so it's been really kind of helpful for the community for sure.
Do you personally take ideas from what's discussed in the community as inspiration for your own content?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because I try to monitor it a little bit. Like I don't have any admins, and I do occasionally have to get it in there and kick people out. So I'm pretty active, just like monitoring it. I mean, the way I do Telegram is some people do like separate, what are they called, like forums or groups within their
Hmm.
Telegram, but I don't do that. I just have a one feed, so it's a little bit of mayhem, but I
Okay.
like it. I like it because there could be multiple conversations at once, and they're kind of overlapping, but I like it because at least it's busy every day,
It's
all
buzzing.
day. It's buzzing all day, every day. Whereas the ones, if you have Telegram, the ones that have kind of like separate groups or topics, a lot of those topics aren't buzzing every day. So I don't know. I just like the
The
constant
constant
mayhem.
chatter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are some goals you have for the business? Either this year, 5 year, 10 year. Take that any direction you'd like.
Yeah, well, we have been taking steps into the sort of mainstream investment migration world. Maybe you've seen this organization called IMI Daily that's also pretty
No.
active on Twitter. They're kind of like an industry publication for investment migration professionals. And
Okay.
I went to one of their conferences. I met other investment migration professionals. A lot of them were involved in CBI, which is citizenship by investment, where you can buy a passport from St. Kitts or one of the Caribbean islands for 150 200K. And so, long story short, there is a professional side of this industry, and it's still pretty small, and I think it's going more and more mainstream every year, in terms of investment migration, citizenship by investment, residencies. So it's getting more mainstream every year. I noticed a lot of these kind of old school style law firms, or these old school investment migration companies, they don't really have social media presence so much. They rely on referrals from,
Hmm.
I think, financial advisors and things like that, and just like a old school network. They don't really have the social media the way I do, and so I think I'm kind of bringing something fresh to that industry, and we're kind of, but we want to grow to be a player in that old school industry and disrupt it a little bit.
Well, sounds like what those businesses aren't doing is demand creation, where with what you're doing on the content side, you're taking people who maybe hadn't thought about this before. Like they're pretty much only getting people who someone said, based on your situation, you should talk to this guy. Whereas you're taking maybe getting, that tweet about that particular city gets a million views because it's just a controversial statement about a place. And then people look at your profile, see all this other content that's just interesting. And now you've created new potential demand for your services.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
I haven't given you much opportunity to actually jam for a second on some of the core Latin life stuff. So let's take a second here. It's August 2024 for a bit of a timestamp. Where do you see a couple mainstream plays and a couple less mainstream plays as really great? Let's go with not full, you know, CBI, people trying to get passports, just maybe like a longer term remote work stint destination. What are you liking these days?
Okay, destinations. Well, I'll tell you the top digital nomad hubs, and then maybe that'll be a kickoff. So in
Sure.
Latin America, top digital nomad hubs would be Mexico City, Guadalajara, Los Cabos, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and there's even smaller places in Mexico, but then Antigua, Guatemala, um, all over Costa Rica. What's the place, the beach town in Nicaragua? I'm losing it, but also Granada and Leon
It's
there.
definitely on your Twitter if someone wants to find it.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Panama City's a big nomad hub. Medellin's a big nomad hub. Florianopolis, Brazil is
Brazil.
big.
Yep.
Asuncion, Paraguay is a growing nomad hub. Um, so those Buenos Aires, Argentina, obviously. So those are kind of the top, roughly the top 10.
What about the CBI side of things?
CBI, so there's about 10 countries in the world that offer citizenship in exchange for money, effectively, citizenship where you can purchase citizenship. On the expensive end is Malta, which is
Hmm.
around $1 million for citizenship, but it's by far the best one. It's a Tier A passport. You get access to the Schengen and the EU. So that's Malta. El Salvador also famously launched the $1 million Bitcoin citizenship
Hmm.
a couple months ago as well. Um, and then I think Jordan, the country of Jordan, has an expensive CBI that isn't too popular because it's kind of overpriced, but I think it's like 800K, something like that. Egyptian citizenship by investment can be acquired by investing, I think it's 250K US in real estate in Egypt. Turkey can be acquired for 400,000 real estate investment, leads to citizenship. And then that leaves us with Vanuatu has direct citizenship for a donation of 150K, I believe it is. And then there are five Caribbean nations as well, and they sort of act in unison that offer Caribbean citizenship. So that would be Grenada, Antigua, St. Kitts, Dominica, and St. Lucia. So I think that's the full landscape. There's always one or two opening and closing per year in terms of these programs, but those are like roughly the top 10 programs where you can spend money and get a second passport.
We'll do a couple final questions here. What's the main reason that you personally have kind of chosen this lifestyle, or reasons?
Yeah, good
Uh,
question. I mean, did you want to add to it?
no,
Okay. So, I think the reason has changed over time. It originally started as escaping winter. You know, I grew up in Canada and the northeastern United States, playing
valid.
hockey, you know, skiing and enjoying winter, sort of, but it just doesn't compare. And so I always knew I wanted to escape winter. I read The 4 Hour Work Week early on by Tim Ferriss that influenced a lot of people to do this kind of thing. And yeah, I always wanted to, get to know the world and learn about the world and visit all the countries and learn languages. But I didn't want to be a backpacker bum, like living on savings.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Take 5K, come back broke, and that kind of thing. So I wanted to wait till I could be a digital nomad and make money online and travel the world at the same time. And I thought that was a good balance of kind of having your cake, eat it too, where the bank account's going up every month, but I'm also getting to do cool stuff. I lived a couple months in Barcelona. I lived a couple months here and there. So it's been incredible. And I've been now fully remote for over 6 years, and it's uh, it's been amazing.
It's incredible. I guess last question to someone who has a business and isn't sure if they should start making content. What would be your opinions, your philosophy that you would tell them?
Yeah, I think counterintuitively, I think you can make a lot of. I think money and follower count are not as correlated as people think they are. You can make more money with the smaller follower account if you have it really dialed in to make money and you have good processes and you have, a good pitch or service that people want. You know what I mean? Like you don't need 30,000 followers on Twitter to make money. There are probably tons of people with 5,000 followers making more than me because they have just um, a more direct offer. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
whereas what I do is a little bit more boutique and things like that. Um, but yeah, I think it's totally possible to make a lot of money with maybe an email list. Shout out to your services, um, and you can do a lot with a small following, especially if you do, you know, DM outreach and things like that. So I think it's not as correlated as people think.
Awesome. For people who want to follow you, what are the actions? Twitter, you have your podcast on YouTube. Where should people go if they want to learn more about the Latin lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can type in My Latin Life on all podcast providers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just search My Latin Life, it'll come up. And then My Latin Life on Twitter. There's the website as well, mylatinlife.com. And through those links, you'll find your way to the Telegram group as well. So, and we're able to help with any services in Latin America. I think you were even toying with the idea of getting Mexico residency at some point.
I
So,
know about residency. Maybe spend some time there. But
okay.
yeah,
Well,
I was there about a
uh,
year ago in Mexico. Haven't been back.
it's a no-brainer. You know, getting like PR, permanent residency in a couple different countries around the world. It's good to just have a little bit of a plan B. But anyway, so that's some of what we do, and you know, humbled by the invitation. Thank you for having me and being able to talk about some of the stuff we do.
Oh yeah, man. Appreciate it.